Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, as we share movies that the other one has not seen before, Casey McGeorge.
McGeorge, Casey McGeorge. How's it going, everybody?
It's going good. Yeah, if you couldn't tell from Casey's intro there, we are talking about Bond, James Bond, as we will be discussing the first of the new films of James Bond, Casino Royale, the 2006 version of that, which stars Daniel Craig, Eva Green, Mads Mikkelsen, Judy Dench, Dame Judy
Yeah,
Dench.
yeah. Let's make sure we give Dame Judy Dench her respect.
We have directed by Martin Campbell, screenplay by Neal Purvis, Robert Wade, Paul Haggis, and it's based off Ian Fleming, who created James Bond, his novel Casino Royale. Um, and it was released November 17th in the US anyway of 2006. It made $616 million at the box office. That is what we're talking about here. I think this is also going to be a fairly different episode in the sense that a lot of the ones I've shared have been movies that I have either like probably seen on release or have loved for a long part of my life. While this is something that I really just watched for the first time 3 years ago. So this will be, as we talk about like where were you in 2006? It's not like I was watching this in 2006 either. And it really, I've only seen the Bond movies of Daniel Craig. So to kind of get that out of the way first, I don't have a lot of reference points for like previous Bond stuff. I know of like the generic, I guess stereotypical Bond stuff. Um, you know, 007, him saying Bond, James Bond, M being the leader of MI6 and stuff. Like I know that type of stuff, and I know that there's like gadgets and stuff, but I have not seen still to this day any of those older ones. I want to go back and watch some of them. But really, my only experience with Bond before this would be like parodies or over my friend's house. He had like I think the GoldenEye N64 game that we'd sometimes play. That was it. It was really my only experience with Bond. So I ask you, Casey, as somebody that also has never seen any Bond movies, what's kind of kept you away from Bond, and where were you in 2006 when this one released?
So I've known about old Jimmy Bond here for a little bit longer, right? I grew up during the '80s. I'm a little older than you, so I was alive during the '80s. I remember like A View to a Kill. I think Duran Duran did the theme song for that one, and there were a few James Bond movies that were released when I was a kid. Um, I never got a chance to watch any of them. I don't know why. Uh, and then I know they went through the Pierce Brosnan phase. Um, like you, I knew the basics. British guy, drinks martinis, shaken not stirred, right? Works for British intelligence agency. Um, he usually ends up going. They didn't show it in this one, but he usually ends up going through like after he gets his mission. He goes through some warehouse or wherever, looks at a bunch of gadgets. They tell him what this stuff does, right? Comes into play later. He goes to some island or some cave somewhere, does something, sees some very attractive women, sleeps with a lot of them, kills a bunch of henchmen, eventually fights the bad guy, gets captured by the bad guy, gets tortured, but the bad guy monologues too long. Excuse me. Bad guy goes on a monologue too long, and eventually he ends up saving the day from nuclear threat or whatever the case is, and he lives happily ever after. Right. The biggest thing I knew was he had probably one of the coolest theme songs. Like I don't care, that theme song as the
Yeah.
kids say. Their theme song slaps. Still does. Even if you go, and I know they have like Adele did, one of the Bond songs not that long ago. I think Madonna did one a while back. Um,
Duran Duran.
yeah, I think that was
Duran
for
Duran did one.
I think that was for a View to a Kill. Um,
Yes. Yes, it was. That's the name of the song, too. Yep.
um, so like
McCartney. Didn't McCartney do one?
he might have, you know, but like I know the basics, and then like you said, I know they parodied a lot, and most of whether it's cartoons, TV shows, and then Austin Powers kind of parodied it the most, right? Like that was pretty much a direct parody of James
Which
Bond.
we've talked about on here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last
that
year when we
we
talked
talked the first
about
Austin Powers.
when we watched, International Man of Mystery. And part of the reason I never really watched any of it was once you got the basics, like the story doesn't really change, right? Like that everything I just said is basically kind of the same thing that has happened in all like 25 movies or something. I will say probably with the exception of these last 4 or 5 or whatever with Daniel Craig, because they started going in a more realistic direction. But everything else has pretty much been the same premise for like 20 movies. Like, they would have cars that would go underwater, and they would have like uh cufflinks that would like shoot a poison dart or shoot like an explosive dart or something. There was these weird fantastical things and exploding pens and stuff. And maybe some of it's based on like real stuff that spies might have used, but a lot of it's just really fantastical and it's made movie magic, which is cool. Like no nothing to see there. But it's just one of those, it's like if you get the premise, do you really need to see 19 other movies of the same exact thing? Probably not. So I just never got around to it. 2006, still in the Army. I was stationed out here in California at Fort Irwin, the National Training Center. Or I was getting ready to move to El Paso, Texas to go to Fort Bliss. And I was either my second or third deployment to Iraq. And I remember it was a big deal because they had cast a blonde guy as James Bond. What were they thinking?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what was going on? There's a blonde dude with blue eyes playing James Bond. Like, that was a big stink in 2003 and 4 when they first announced it. And
Yeah.
some people were
Which is
like, "What
crazy
is?"
to me because that is not like that doesn't seem like a big thing. But
It doesn't until you look at their history for like the 20 movies previously, where it was always the same basic character. It was,
right.
I mean, obviously, it was always a tall, he's in shape, good looking dude. Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan. And they all had the same basic look: dark hair. You know, they can rock the hell out of a tuxedo. Um, so much, in fact, I don't know if this is one of your facts. I might be spoiling, but when Pierce Brosnan was playing Bond, he was cast in a movie called Tom's Crown Affair. But one of the things in the contract for being James Bond is he cannot wear a tuxedo in another movie that is not a James Bond movie. So there was a scene in A Thomas Crown Affair with Rene Russo, and in order to get around his contractual obligations with James Bond, he had to open up the jacket, and then because obviously all these sophisticated men don't wear clip-on ties, they wear real bow ties that you tie. So he had to like untie the tie and like have the jacket open, and I think like a button or two on the shirt open, so they could get the gist of it's a tuxedo, but people wouldn't look at it and be like, "Oh, it's a James Bond movie," or "That's James Bond." So like they had all these like there's these weird rules that they had to follow too, and that was just one of the weird rules. Um, but yeah, even for the most part, I think with a few exceptions, like the gadgetry, I think I pretty much nailed like almost what happens in a lot of this James Bond movie.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, a lot of the silly stuff. I guess people would say, right? Like that was actually one of the reasons why they kind of moved on from um from Pierce Brosnan. And originally, they were developing Casino Royale with like Pierce Brosnan, and until
Yeah,
they
so, but
decided to,
and it was going to be like $30 million to cast him, and then they were like, all right,
yeah,
let's take a look at this because he was a huge actor at the time, and I mean, James Bond movies make bank. Like each one
right.
in their respective time periods are profitable movies, and they usually release as like the number one movie in America, and they make a huge amount of money worldwide because it's a known character. So like the budget started getting out of control, and you know,
Yeah, and it said like that they've decided like one, it was getting a little too, I guess you would say, camp, right? So they decided to make this new one. Especially, they didn't want to. They thought they relied too much on CGI in the more recent films, especially Die Another Day, which was the last one of the Pierce Brosnan movies, and they decided to accomplish the stunts in Casino Royale the old-fashioned way. Is what it says here, that I'm reading directly from here. Um, so while they were trying to do more realism with the effects, it also made them want to also follow the script closely as possible to the original 1953 novel, which of Casino Royale, which is apparently a darker storyline and characterization of Bond. Um, and I'm guessing they fixed this later on, because there are movies and the organization is called Spectre in other things. The bad guys are not named Spectre in this movie because of a copyright issue in
yeah,
relation to like
I've read
ninth
that
book of the
last night.
Bond series.
I read that
Yeah.
last night. Like there was one guy who had the rights. So Spectre and whoever the main villain from Spectre is, he had the rights to it, and they couldn't get the rights until he passed away, and then they were like able to negotiate with his estate or his family to finally get the rights to tie everything together. But like, and then as I'm watching this last night, I read like MGM ended up getting this because they traded the rights to Spider-Man back to Sony for it because Sony had the rights to it for
Yes.
a while. And which is that which Spider-Mans did we get because of that? Was that the
The Tobey Maguire ones.
and this is just like regular stuff. This is without even getting into like streaming issues or whatever now, but it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they had to worry about all that. That's ludicrous, man.
It is. Some of the actors that they looked at were a young Henry Cavill, which is he was only like, I think they said 22 at the time, so he was considered too young. Cavill later says that the director turned him down because he thought Cavill was out of shape. They looked at Australian actor Sam Worthington, Scottish actor Dougray Scott. Um, there's a bunch of actors that they looked at, as well as like some more established guys, I think, earlier on. But they were started kind of leaning more towards, like you said, because of the cost of Pierce Brosnan, that they started looking at more like unknowns, right? Unknowns that they were looking for to try to take on the mantle of James Bond. Um, but yeah, they want to go a little bit more serious with it. And then they'll also, which I'll highlight as we talk about the movie as well, one a little bit more inexperienced as well, in the sense of this is not a Bond that's been at it for a long time. This is a James Bond that just got promoted to being a double O and taking on this stuff. I think some of the reason why some people might that are hardcore Bond fans may not connect to these as much is because it is missing some of that stuff, and because I think they always used to try to like either headcanon it that all of these Bonds are the same person, right? Or that Bond is the title and not so there's been kind of that, because like you'll have some of those same people that stretch throughout. Like there was a guy who played the character of Q in the movies since Live and Let Die all the way up to like 1999's release.
Yeah, because
So
didn't
he was doing that for
and
20 some years.
doesn't John Cleese like take over as Q in the later movies?
He took over for it in one movie, Die Another Day. And then we reboot with Daniel Craig. So that ended up being what happened with that.
I've seen those theories of like, hey, it's the 007 is the character, not the person. Like you said, like it's
Mm-hmm.
eventually that person either retires or because of what he does, he probably dies somewhere or is killed, and then eventually someone else takes the title of 007.
Right.
Um, I obviously, Ian Fleming is no longer alive. We'll never really know how that is meant to really go. I can kind of see their obviously that's a fan theory, and I can kind of see their point with that, especially like you said with uh everything that's happened in the James Bond universe up until these most recent ones, where like you said, the same person was playing M or Q all the time, and then eventually you had a period where, like I said, there was Sean Connery, it was Roger Moore, it was Timothy Dalton. I don't know who it was. There was somebody who played it just for one role. Was James Bond just for one
Um,
movie,
I'm
and then
looking now. It looks like it's George Lazenby
yeah, he was James
in
Bond just for once,
1969.
and
Yep.
then they moved on to another guy, and then Pierce Brosnan. But some of these same people were playing, and these other characters around him, and obviously they can't necessarily like nowadays. If you make a movie, they might make a comment about how he looks a little different, or he's changed. Like if I'm surprised they didn't make a crack with Daniel Craig about his hair or something in this one, right? Because that seems to be something they would do. Oh, you dyed your hair while you were on holiday or something. Um,
Right, right. It's also confusing because they keep Judy Dench, right, as M from like some of those previous movies. She comes over in this. I think that was just like they
I,
liked her
I didn't know that.
acting and wanted
I
to
thought
keep
this
her.
was her first appearance as Emma. I didn't know
No,
she had appeared.
she
She
was
was
in it
crazy.
during some of the Brosnan movies, apparently. So that was, I think, some of the confusion for people. So that might be why the blonde eye thing happened too. It's like, I can't make this fit my head of how this continues the other movies, but they were really trying to make it very not connected.
And
And
I
I
kind
think
of
that's I think it's a good idea because it can get people like me or other people that haven't seen any of them be like, all right, check this one out, right?
yeah, I kind of like the origin story. If you haven't followed James Bond for the 20 previous movies or whatever it was, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, you know the basics, but you may not know how he got to be James Bond or what it was like starting out as a, as James Bond as 007. So seeing an origin story of like, hey, as we'll get to it, it technically in the very beginning of the movie, he's not even a double O yet. He's still waiting to accomplish that task, and he doesn't accomplish it until the very beginning of this movie. So
Yeah. So, and you mentioned the songs too. I did look it up. Paul McCartney did write "Live and Let Die" in '73. So yes, this has been a thing that like maybe I can find a list of Bond songs, right? Like, um, it became a big thing, right? Where like people would release the James Bond
yeah, get a top
theme
pop star
movie,
from the current time to
right?
do the theme for James Bond for this movie, and I think it became a pretty coveted thing. Like it wasn't just like, let's just pick this person. Like people were actually campaigning or trying to pull strings behind the scenes to get that because it was such a huge deal.
Yeah, Tom Jones sang Thunderball, Live and Let Die, Paul McCartney, um, Carly Simon,
A View to a Kill
Duran
by Greg
Duran,
Land.
yeah, Aha, Tina Turner, Cheryl Crow, Madonna, um,
Like I said,
all of this.
Adele.
This one was Chris Cornell, who did, I guess, the one for Casino Royale.
I have no clue who that is.
Yeah, I think he passed away. He was part of Soundgarden and Audio Slave.
Okay.
Um, and then we have, we'll have Adele later on. We have Jack White and Alicia Keys. Billie Eilish did the last one. But yeah, it became a thing where they're like, oh, who's doing the Bond song? Like every time a Bond movie comes out. So that became a thing. And then, of course, the main theme, which is played not in the intro usually, because for the intro credits we get the one that's usually named after the movie. It's usually how that works. And then we have the main James Bond theme, which
What,
you'll hear as he's doing stuff, or the end credits and stuff.
would you say that's probably one of the most recognized and iconic themes in movies history?
Yeah, probably. Like I knew it before I watched it, so I feel
Yeah,
like that's got to be a good sign, right?
I've I've heard it, and eventually I knew it came from James Bond or whatever. And then I was just thinking about that literally just now. What other themes out there could you really play that people would know exactly, even if they hadn't seen the movie, like that they would know, like, oh,
Right.
that's James Bond. Also, I didn't know until American Dad did a parody of James Bond in their intro, where I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the guy from American Dad, the main character, Seth MacFarlane voices Sam. No, is it Sam? No, it's not Sam. Um,
Stan.
Stan Smith. I don't know why I got Sam.
Yeah.
Stan Smith works for the CIA, and he's playing a James Bond character. And they do the intro, and you get the cloak, like the little circle thing, and he gets shot from it. He's like, "Oh, that's a
Yes. Yeah.
gun! I didn't know that." And I was like, "I didn't know that was supposed to be a gun." Like the same thing. I was like, "That's a gun! I didn't know that was supposed to be a gun." And now I can see it from the rifling from the barrel and stuff.
It's a very particular trope, I guess you would say, like a James Bond trope as well as that as you go into the credits. Um, so
The
this was
kind of
very done.
the cold open kind of thing too, where they kind of just go
Yes,
like they have. I don't know any other movies that kind of have a cold open like this. Like I'm sure there are some, but
because
like
there used to be more, but they've kind of stopped doing credits at the beginning now and kind of shift it more to credits at the end in today's cinema,
yeah, you
right?
might just get like a title, like a couple of main characters directed by like whoever the director is, starring you, me, one or two other people, right? People who people probably came to see, and it might be in the contract to have their name up there high, in the very beginning or something, and then they just kind of go to the movie. But here, like you got like the whole thing. You almost got gaffers and grips and stuff, and but
Yeah.
but like I said, you get the cold open, and then you get the theme song, and then the credits roll and everything. And I was like, wow, this is like once again seeing it parodied, never seen it done in live
Right.
form until last night.
Yeah, so we have this starts off a little different than any James Bond one, I would say too, that I've seen anyway, because it is in black and white, and it's usually I feel like the opening scenes are like an action set piece. This is kind of both. Like it is a little bit of more of a conversation between him and the guy he's taking out, right? And it's in black and white, I guess, because it is a flashback. We're getting a little bit more of a flashback here as he is getting his license to kill. He's getting promoted to double O status by assassinating a traitor here. And the guy even says like, "Oh, Bond, you're not a
Double O yet.
something about like you're not a double O, yeah." And he's like, "Your
Yeah.
kill count's 0," and he says like 2, actually, right?
Or no,
And
it
we
takes
flash back
two.
to him fighting these guys.
It takes two. He's got one already, so he needs another
Yes, yeah,
one
yeah,
to get it. Um, Great opening. I telegraphed one thing immediately because it's like, okay, you go into your office or wherever you're breaking into. Like, I think it was this guy's office, and he's trying to steal secrets, right?
yeah,
Okay, cool. You go in there, somebody's waiting for you, right? Not cool. gonna be a tense thing, and like obviously there's some stuff's about to have to go down. Okay, got it. Um, if he was already waiting for you in the office, there's like a 99.9% chance that your gun is not gonna have any bullets in it when you decide you're gonna pull it out. That was
Yes.
sitting in your desk, like that was easy to telegraph. Where it's like, oh, that's a bad move, man. That gun is not gonna have any bullets in it. Come on now.
Yeah, you think he's an amateur? Well, he does. He does think he's an amateur, I guess. So he
I guess
doesn't think it's
technically he
gonna.
was an amateur because he didn't
Yeah.
receive his license to kill until this one. So he's kind of doing these two pro bono. I don't know,
Right. Right.
but I mean, yeah, he's a rookie, so I guess he might make a rookie mistake, But
He didn't. He takes out Dryden, and we also see, like you said, the barrel of the gun thing, where he, the guy's getting back up and is about to shoot, and we see from through the gun's perspective of Bond turning around and shooting him, and that launches us into the opening. So, what was your like first thought with this opening, especially starting off in like black and white and all that?
the black and white got me for a second because I was like, okay, did my TV mess up?
Just the whole
Like,
movie like this?
well, no, because I just wasn't sure, but I was like, obviously, I knew the movie was, eventually gonna be in color. I've seen like clips from it and everything, but I was like, is this a sign I need to get a new TV? Damn it! Like, because I've had my TV's had some wonky color things happen before, and I've had to like unplug it, kind of reset it. So I was like, plus I think you remember when I first got the TV and I had all those issues trying to get it when we were doing the break room for Superstore, and it's like 6 years ago, so that was a while. So it might be around the time to be getting a new one. I was like, man, damn it! But great intro, tense scene. Once again, love the origin story. And honestly, I love the intro credits. Like I said, this was the first time watching the James Bond intro and everything. And with obviously the title is Casino Royale. And eventually like he has to go play poker in this movie. So that there's big poker scenes, right? And having the card suits in the intro and everything, I thought it was great and I thought it was done really well. Question for you, and this will come up later. Do you play poker at all?
I'm out of practice, but I used to play a lot. I actually had I don't know, I was in high school. Maybe I had a poker themed birthday party, and we had like
So,
the poker tables and the poker chips, and we would play rounds with each other. And it used to be something we used to do a lot. I used to even play with my grandmother. But yeah.
so me and a bunch of guys at the post office I work with get together usually when we have like a Monday off or a holiday. A few times a year on Sunday, we'll get together. Every now and then it'll be like a Saturday night if there's a UFC fight. We'll go to one of these guys' house and we'll have like a big poker night, right? It's low stakes. Usually the buy-ins like you can buy in up to like $100, and you can cash out at some point during the night, or you play to the end of the night and winner take all. Um, by no means am I a pro poker player. Am I probably that any good? I've won more than I've lost with them. Um, I've had like 2 or 3 losing nights, but I've had many nights where I've walked out $200 or $300 on the plus side. So I'm pretty much up. We'll talk about this later. The poker scenes got me, man. The poker scenes in this movie really, really got me. So I wasn't sure like if you had any experience or what your experience with that was. We'll get to that later on.
Yeah, no, it's something that I used to do a lot more than I used to, and I mean, I used to do a lot more than I do now. I should, I don't know, like even when middle school, like my friends would come over and we'd play poker. I don't even know what really got me into it. I
I'd
guess,
say it
but
was probably because in the mid 2000s, like there was a huge poker boom. It started being
it
shown
may
on like
be. Yeah.
ESPN and ESPN2.
Mhm. I
I'll be
also had a
honest,
Game Boy game that was called like Texas Hold'em Poker.
I had never heard of
That's how I
Texas
learned.
Hold'em until like the World Series of Poker became a big thing. Like the only thing I knew was like I'd heard it or played 7 card stud, and obviously like
That's
five
what they're
card draw.
playing in this. They're playing Texas Hold'em.
Yeah, but like I played 7 card stud or whatever a little bit, and obviously the one everybody sees in like the old cowboy movies, like 5 card draw. Right, you dealt 5 cards, you can put whatever back, and then if you've ever seen Maverick, like that's what they play in Maverick, which is an awesome movie. Um, but for whatever reason, around this time, early 2000s, uh, there was a big poker boom. Like I said, it started being shown on like ESPN2 and ESPN, and then like it became this huge thing. And next thing you know, is on like NBC, and then there were all these online poker stars and all these online gambling sites where you could play poker, and it became this huge deal. So that, like, not saying that's exactly what it was, but considering that's when you grew up around the same time, it's probably when you might have got exposed to it, really, unless it came from your family otherwise.
No, I don't think so. Like I definitely I was the poker player in my house. Not my parents, not
Yeah,
my sister. It was me. And then like I taught my grandmother how to play like Texas Hold'em, and we would, when I go down to the beach to visit her when she lived down there before she moved back, that's what we used to do. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I guess it may have just been the TV exposure. I had a Texas Hold'em Game Boy game, and it was just I don't know if I got the game because I was into it, or if I got the game like
and
as a
then got
gift or
it,
something.
and then got into it
Yeah, like I
because
don't
of
know.
the game. But like, I can
Right,
imagine like they probably wouldn't have made the game if it wasn't. You know what I'm saying? Like because it
popular
was
around
the
it. And that would
boom.
have been
Yeah,
around probably
it
like
it, it made the
'03.
yeah, because
Yeah,
that's around the time it started becoming a big deal. And then, like I said, they used to have like poker on NBC on like the weekends, especially like after football season, where
yeah.
once football season ends, they don't. There's not a lot sports wise going on, and then you had celebrities starting to get into it, like Jennifer Tilly and a few other celebrities.
They do
Start
like the celebrity poker nights too on some
Yeah,
channels.
and then and then it helps when you can watch it from one of those perspectives because you're watching it, you see like, okay, this is what the deal, or this is what each person has, and then they start showing you the percentages and stuff. So it's easier to look at and play when you can see that. It's a lot different game where there's 8 other people at a table and you know you have no clue what else is going on. You're just like, oh,
There's the one year, I forget what it was. I watched the World Series of Poker late at night and watched like this German guy named I think his name was Pius. He won. Um Pius Hines, I think his name was. He won and I like was rooting for him because I, am German heritage and take German classes and all that kind of stuff. So it was like one of those things. I remember staying up till like I don't know 2 a.m. watching this poker tournament go on. Um, but yeah, no, this was we start off with the cold open, we get into the credits, and then we start off with the Madagascar foot race here, where they're um where he's going after somebody, and it was something that I couldn't remember. Like I'd watched all five of these movies of the Daniel Craig ones in pretty quick succession because I bought like a digital pack on Vudu that had the first four, and it came. I think I got it on sale right before No Time to Die came out as the last one, and I went to like I binged them pretty quickly, like over a span of a week or so, and then went to see the movie. So I couldn't remember like when this one started off in black and white. I was like, oh, this is how this one opens. Okay. I was like, maybe it doesn't have that Madagascar scene. And then right after the credits, it's the Madagascar scene. I was like, oh, okay. So look, we're not going to spoil your ranking or anything of this, but for me here, I forgot how badass this movie is because like most of the stuff I remember from these movies, I think come from this one. Because then I was like, oh, which one has the airport scene? And it's this one. I'm like, oh, okay, this is which one has the Bahamas scene where he sneaks in the security camo? Oh, it's this one. Like this one was just like the first hour I felt like is very like boom, 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 boom. Like I forgot we hopped around so much. I mostly remembered this movie being the poker movie, but there's a lot of like Bond stuff here well before we get to the poker stuff. And what I really liked about this Madagascar scene, this is what I talk about when I mean inexperience. You have this guy doing acrobatic shit, and you have Bond just burst through the drywall. He's like, I am just going through this.
Well, see, that's one of the things I really like about it in the aspect of they wanted to go a more realistic route, right? So, you get the guy he's chasing, whoever the bomb maker is, they identify. Side note, let's before we get to that, I'm pretty sure the guy he was working with there probably got bit by that cobra and he's probably dead. As I saw that and I saw him fall in that ring, I'm like, oh, he's probably didn't. But especially the thing of like, hey, take your hand away from your ear, man. Like, you know, but it was little things where it's like, okay, in a lot of these movies, obviously you have to aspire something like this has to be like an expert in like hand to hand combat and some other things, right? I get that. He's got to know how to fight. Cool. And he's probably going to know a few different disciplines of martial arts or Krav Maga and a few other things like in order to save his life. Cool. Is every spy going to know like free running and what's it called there?
Parkour?
Yeah. Are they going to be big into parkour? Probably not. Like that's not something like every spy is going to be into. Like you might have a spy who can do parkour and he's probably pretty good at it, but not all of them are gonna. So yeah, like, dude, okay, I'm chasing the guy. He's a parkour nut and he's jumping over and sliding off things, but I'm trying to chase him. Like, am I going to try and jump over this wall? Or if I know it's drywall, hopefully there's not a stud somewhere in between them that's going to knock me out. But if it's drywall, like, yeah, I'm just going to barge through this. Like, the quickest point, the quickest way between 2 points is a straight line. So,
Yeah, I like that too. And then like when you have the one guy jump from crane to crane like effortlessly, you have Bond like almost stumble, and then when he like jumps onto the roof spot, he like falls and like lands on something else, right? Like he is
yeah,
very like
he's not doing a
I
tuck and roll. Like he's hurting himself throughout this whole process.
right, right. I really enjoy that a lot in this movie. We had oh, sorry, the James Bond theme started playing here on my phone. Okay. Um we have Bond going to the embassy. He goes through the embassy, holds the guy at gunpoint, and they think they have him dead to rights here, but he will like kind of shoot like I don't know, like a gas tank type thing behind him, and he shoots the guy with another gun, then he shoots the gas tank enough to like leave. Um he gets the guy's phone, but like he doesn't really tell anybody this because like he ends up at Agent M's house, right? And is getting like reamed out by Dame Judy Dench here
Dude,
of
that
you're an
that
idiot.
like
You
an
got us one
embassy
bomb maker.
an embassy is sacred ground. It's considered
And he's on camera too. That's another
an
issue.
embassy is considered like actually the grounds of that nation, right? So like if we go to like the Peruvian embassy, if like let's say Peru has an embassy here in the U.S., probably in Washington D.C., right? The Peruvian embassy is considered like actual Peruvian soil. Like so that can be enough to start a war. That is considered like an act of war to go into another nation's embassy and especially start causing havoc. Like who was the guy? Julian Assange. That's why like he was stuck. I want to say what was it the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK for so long, and they
Mm.
couldn't get hit. Like they couldn't do anything. And eventually, like after years, the Ecuadorians like had to kick him out of the embassy because they can't go. Like the British couldn't go in. So it's like because once again, it can start national conflict. Now, if it's I hate to say it like this, but like what was were they Madagascar in
Yeah, and I think it was a Ugandan embassy.
so let's be realistic here. The United Kingdom's military is not really worried about uh, the Madagascarian or the Ugandan military. Like that's not it's not something that they're worried about. Like if they really want to go, if the Ugandans or the Madagascarian people really want to like declare an act of war, like really, you really want to do that? It's not going to work. Like, don't get me wrong, it's an international incident. It's not good. Like, yeah, Britain needs to make that right. But what I'm saying is like, it'd be one thing if it was like the embassy of like Russia or
Mm-hmm.
China or North Korea, like a major world power. It's a whole different story. But when it's a country like a South American country that's fairly small, Bolivia, Peru, you know, some of these smaller African countries, um, yeah, it sucks. They'll make it right. They'll pay him some money, but like they're just looking at him like, okay, you're right. We get it. Here's your money. But let's not get too huffy about this because, in all fairness, you're not gonna. If you decide to start something, it's not gonna last long for you. So like,
Right, right.
let's be realistic about this here, guys. Like,
But it's just bad press too, and
oh,
like
it's bad. Like it's bad.
M,
Like I'm not saying it's not. It's bad.
yeah, no,
Bond
M
deserved that ass
mentions,
joint.
yeah, M mentions like as she's walking out of like talking to Congress, right? She walks out, she's
Yeah,
like,
she.
they
I
never
think she
asked
went
me
to
these type of
Parliament.
questions.
Yeah, she got
Yeah,
reamed in Parliament, rightfully so. And she even told Bond like they want your head, and I'm thinking about giving it to them. Like,
yeah. I love this scene so much. This I think when you have Daniel Craig, and he wasn't as well known then, but like you have Daniel Craig and Dame Judi Dench having this conversation. I think they're playing off each other so well in this scene. Um, he even mentions like, "Oh, I thought M was a randomly assigned letter, but it actually stands for." And she's like, "Utter one more syllable," you
I
know.
will kill. I will have you killed. I haven't seen Judy Dench in much, right? Um, obviously, I know who she is. I'm not sure where I was first exposed to her. I'm sure I've seen her in other movies. I just cannot think of what I might have seen her in, right? Um, quick side note: is she still alive or is she no longer with
She's alive. She's
us? Okay.
90 years old.
Um, so like I said, I know of her. I've probably seen her and stuff. I just can't think of what I might have seen her in previously. Um, she is a powerhouse in this movie. She plays a very fierce character, but she holds her own in that role, being in charge of MI6. Um, and she is definitely even in her advanced age. So if she's 90 now, she was what? So her character would have been in her 70s during when this came out.
Yeah, this is almost 20 years ago at this point. Somehow 18 years ago. So yeah, she's in her
Late
70s.
60s, early 70s, but she is not to be trifled with by anybody, including whatever members of parliament rightfully decided to ream her for what happened. So she gives a phenomenal performance in this movie.
Yeah, she's great. Uh but we get a good something that comes back around at the end, right? She will ask him, I like tell him, I need you to know who to trust, right? Like that is what I need you to do. And he it doesn't even tell her that really has this lead at all. Like he got the guy's phone. She's thinking, I think that he just got
You
the
just
bomb
killed one
maker,
bomb maker, and that's it.
right? And he says, I thought one less bomb maker is a good thing, right? He's not playing he's not showing all of his cards here, but um, he
Speaking
does
of
know
which,
where to go next.
did you see him with the cards on the table in this prior to, or like when Dame Judy Dench walked in?
Oh, like having playing cards on the table?
Yeah, I think he like rolled them out or whatever.
Oh, I don't know if I caught that. I'll have to go back again. Just another reason for me to watch this movie over again. Um, but he goes to the Bahamas, right? This is where I guess he was able to track where the text came from that said ellipses to the bomb maker, and he tracks. I love this is another scene I just really love. He goes and he's just tying his shoe, and they think he is the
The valet.
valet, and he just like, sure, yeah, give me your keys. He goes and just backs the car into a fence and into the other cars there, and it creates a distraction enough for him to go in and look in the security office. He looks at the timestamp of when the text was sent and is able to kind of get a lead here.
Very lax security at this top notch resort. That's got to bump you down a star in
Yeah.
your Yelp review. You never leave. You never leave the security office empty. Like someone always has to be in there. Like what is going on here?
Here's what I think too. I think it's one of those situations where they're so used to their high end clientele that they don't think, I don't know, they get a little too comfortable, don't think anything is gonna happen, I guess. Like, I don't know. But the security just runs out there to see what's going on and just leaves the
There's
camera
no
office
key. There's no key to
unattended.
get into the security office. No code. Like
Nope.
we're just leaving it behind a random door that any Joe Schmo can log in.
Yeah, he finds the tape when the text was, I guess, received, and he's able to see
He
who
knows
checked his
exactly what
phone
drawer to
or
go
whatever.
to find the tape from that one too. Like
Yeah, I guess I don't know how. I guess I have to look at the times on how long ago this was. Just a
it
few
was
days
still
ago, so it would be more in like top
more recent ones. Yeah.
the top thing. Yeah,
Okay,
I
I'll
guess
buy that.
he's a smart guy. But he also goes to the check-in desk, right, and asks the front desk about a car that was in the footage, and he's like, "Oh, like I just accidentally like ding the car here," and she's like, "Oh, that's Demetrius car," and gives him the name. And it's like, I would just probably not even mention it if that's not a guy you want to get on the wrong side of. Is pretty much her point here.
He's not going to take
But
too
yeah,
long.
he gets all the information he needs pretty quickly.
You are not supposed to give information out to random strangers, lady. What is going on?
He lives up the street.
Amateur hour. Look, you know what? That dropped it from a 5-star resort to like a 3 or a 2-star resort.
Yeah, I wouldn't stay there at this point. But we get him, then at the beach. He sees Demetrius, his girlfriend, I guess, riding a horse. Um, and he's able to see, all right, this is the house here. Like he's scoping it out. But he calls M and tells her where he is and starts giving her some information. But we get a poker game here. This is the first kind of instance of poker, and we have like Demetrius here, upset at his girlfriend, and Bond's playing. We get this scene where he even bets his car. Right, he goes all in, and Bond wins because he has three aces instead of the three kings. And you get this nice scene where she's going to the car after the valet picks it up, and she doesn't realize that he had bet the car. And Bond shows up and is like, "Oh, it's mine," pretty much. He doesn't say that, but she gets the hint. She's like, "Oh, I guess I'll
Well,
walk or
she's like,
whatever."
that's why he
Fall
was
into
in
the
a
car.
bad. Yeah, that's why he was in a bad mood when he left.
Yeah, and Bond's like, "Oh, I'll give you a ride," and mentions like going back to his place and just makes a complete circle back to the valet, gets out, and they go into the
He
resort.
said it wasn't far, so
Yeah. Her little like, I don't know, smile or laugh as she gets like, oh, okay, I get it. But they have a drink and they're making out as well here in the place, and he will then call the front desk and order a drink, and they ask, is it for, one glass or two, and he says one, and he ends up leaving because she gets a call from Demetrius and he's on his way to Miami. So Bond knows, I have to get out of here, I have to get to Miami. And that's where we go, and there's like this body world exhibit here where they're making the exchange. No, pretty interesting. But he like goes to a bag check, leaves the bag check thing on a certain display, another poker display actually, and at the body world exhibit. And another like ellipsis text has come through, right? Bond is able to kill Demetrius. This is it for him. Gets him. They have like this knife struggle. He stabs him, steals his phone, and pretty smart again here. He sees the text come through and he just calls the number back to see if the guy responds or reacts at all, so he knows who to follow and who has the new bag. But yeah, we're like less than an hour in and we're already at our third location. It's fine.
yeah. I didn't realize there was the Bahamas in this movie. I didn't know there was a Madagascar. Um, Honestly, I didn't know where the movie took place. I would have guessed like Monaco or Macau or something from the poker aspect of it, but I didn't know. Just because
Yeah.
those are pretty big gambling hotspots for the the extra wealthy there. The so this is so I watch a lot of movies and TV, right? And while I can get into them, I don't feel a lot of tension a lot of times when I watch movies and TV, just because I don't know. I don't. There's a disconnection for me, and I'm usually able to disconnect pretty well from a lot of them. I forget what it was. Whatever movie we watched where I talked about the Alfred Hitchcock quote about tension or suspense.
Jingle all the
Um,
way.
yeah, well, there was some suspense in there, not as much. I forget what it was. Oh, I think it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith. When we watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
Right.
and I brought up the quote Alfred Hitchcock talked about suspense and with the bomb under the table. I felt tension during these poker scenes because once again, I'm not a pro player by any stretch of the imagination, but I've played enough with my own little group of friends, right? And like I said, we play several times a year, and I can say I've been in those situations, like maybe not in that
You bet
exact
your car.
situation. Yeah, I always have like a 1962 Aston Martin. I'm willing to throw down, but you know, so if you look at the math on like shuffling of a deck of cards, um, I think that like the amount of combinations are ludicrous. I think they said there's more combinations than there are like grains of sand or something in the world. Like the sheer amount of number combinations that they have is crazy. But I've had similar tension filled moments with me and my buddies where it comes down to one or two of you and sometimes you just make a bad beat, man. And you think you've got it, and then
I mean, Demetrius had 3 kings. He's thinking he's riding pretty high here.
and yeah, and if you don't know how to read other people or if you're not good at bluffing, like yeah, that tension can come out. So as I'm watching this, um, my chest tightened up a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, this is what people are talking about when they say they feel some tension watching a movie, or like this is what it's like having anxiety watching a movie or certain scenes." And I was like, "Oh,
Right.
I don't like this. Like this is not good. I don't like this at all." Um, but I did like it in the other aspect. But
Yeah, yeah.
uh, yeah, and then
No,
decided, hey, I'm just gonna, you know what, you stay here. I know we were about to have. I know technically we were about to have
relations.
all night to have relations, giggity giggity, right? But you know what, you stay here. I'm gonna get on a plane and go back to Miami for a couple hours. I'll be back. Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Like, look, I'll say this: as a spy, he has to have certain skills to be able to blend in and probably be good with the ladies, and I get that. He's also got to
You
have
have
some
to know
good
when to
self.
turn it down.
He's got to have some self control
Yeah.
because it wouldn't. How hard would it be to be like, well, I can catch the next flight to Miami. That's in like, I can't imagine there's not a lot of flights from the Bahamas to Miami. That's in another hour. So I can get at least a good 15, 20 minutes of fun in here real quick.
Right.
And then he might miss him. And then this whole movie doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, or
Yeah.
as you know, yeah, I won't go there. I was gonna repeat a line from True Lies, but I don't know if that'd be appropriate in this guy, aspect. But like, yeah, like you gotta you gotta turn that off quick. You gotta hit that switch really quick to be like, I
Yep.
gotta go.
Yeah, and then getting to Body World here in Miami. This is probably my favorite scene or set piece of the movie is the airport. Um, you know, inside the bag is a security uniform that the guy he's following is going to change into, and the code on the door is ellipsis. That's one of what they were why they were sending it, I guess. And he gets the idea after he calls M and M's assistant answers. He's like, actually, I gotta go. And he like doesn't really hang up. I guess he just lowers the phone, I guess, and ends up typing in the code, and he goes through. Um, the guy now steals a police car, right? And he's going to set a bomb underneath like this fuel tank truck
And,
that he's driving.
and actually, we skipped a small part where he actually logged into M's network, logged into the network with M's username and password, obviously knowing that they would be able to track that and see who he's
Yes, yeah,
looking
yeah,
at and who he's getting information on. So he's doing this really smart where, like I said, he's leaving breadcrumbs for them to follow. And then, like I said, he sees he starts looking up these people using M's information, and they can track and see that. And then she kind of gets the gist of like, oh, this is who, okay, Dimitri. But then other known associates of Dimitri, and then that leads us to Matt Mikkelsen's character, which is like, oh, this is
yeah.
who's
The Street.
behind all of this. Like, so he's uncovering more of the bigger picture for them, in a great way. So
Yeah, very resourceful. And we get this like just I think really well done fight scene in the on the truck here. We get Bond running up some stair cars. You're gonna get some hop-ons, right? And he's going to
it's making
jump
hot
onto the
pots.
the gas truck or the fuel truck, whatever it is. And they're just having this huge fight as they're trying to drive as the guy's trying to drive this bomb over to like the new airliner, Skybus airliner type thing
Yeah, something
that they're
the company's releasing
unveiling.
its brand new, like the largest plane in the world or something.
Yeah, and Bond is actually going to be able to stop it, and the other guy ditched. and he's thinking he got away with it. He tries detonating this bomb,
I
not
saw this
realizing
coming
that
from a mile
bomb.
away.
Me
I,
too.
I saw this
Me
one
too.
coming from a mile away, where he,
So
he
great.
he's hanging out the door. He looks over, sees the bomb. It's like, okay. My thought was, okay, just grab it and chuck it, right? Like, just grab it, get rid of it. And then when you see him struggle with the guy again, and I'm like, oh, he put that bomb on him. I was like,
Yep.
good move, James. Good move. Like, yeah, that's not gonna end well for you, buddy.
No, he detonates it and it starts hearing it beep, and he's like, "Oh God!" Boom.
Oh shit.
But Bond does get arrested. He ends up getting released, I guess, by MI6, and they go back to the Bahamas, and we find out that Dimitri's girlfriend Solange here is dead, and because he killed Demetrius, they had nobody else to torture, is what M says. So she was tortured before she was killed to try to find some sort of information on Bond. So it's kind of also showing Bond that, he is making mistakes as he goes. While it does look like he's doing a great job to us, there are some mistakes where some innocent people, I guess you would say, or people that are not as involved are getting kind of caught up in it.
And then we find out that what's his name? Lefebvre?
Lashif.
Lashif had planned on. I don't get the whole thing with shorting and doing stuff at the stock market, but he was whatever he was going to do was going to cause that whoever makes that airplane to go bankrupt. But because Bond stopped that, Lashif lost over $100 million of his client's money. That
they're gonna come and try to collect later.
that's $100 million. Like, yeah, that's a lot of money. Like, I borrowed $20 from you. You might be able to hide out a little bit, and eventually you might be able to forgive $20. $100 million. But no, like, yeah, there's going to be some issues there.
So I think we're like more than an hour in this hour 20-minute movie, and we're just now getting introduced to our Bond girl Vesper as he's on the train. We get introduced to Vesper.
I thought
Eva
the
Green.
other girl was Vesper at first, because I don't think they ever mentioned her name.
Yeah.
And I mean, once again, she's another very beautiful woman. So I'll say this: I had heard of Eva Green prior to this movie. I know she was in one of the Sin City movies, and she had done a few other things, so I knew of her. Once again, might have seen her, might not have known I've seen her in something, right? Very beautiful woman, French model, actress. Can't take that away from her in any way, shape, or form. But until I watched this movie, I was kind of the opinion I don't get the big deal about Eva Green. She looks good, she's beautiful, it's great, but there's a lot of beautiful models turned actresses out there. She's just another one. I was wrong. Boy, was I wrong.
No, she's really great in this. I'm trying to figure out if I knew her from anything else before this, but
I know she did. Was it Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, something like that?
Yeah, I'd never seen those. I'd never seen 300, which she was in the sequel to that. Kingdom of Heaven. I knew of her. I just never really seen her in anything, I guess, until this movie. But I think she does a great job. And, she's introduced as being some sort of
she's basically the accountant.
Treasury agent.
Yeah, she works for the Treasury or something because they're getting him in his high stakes because the chief has to get his money.
Yeah, they're the ones fronting the money. Yeah.
So the chief has to find a way to make his $100 million back. So he sets up this high stakes poker game, right, with millions of dollars, $10 million buy-in, $5 million extra buy-in if necessary, and then from there, that's how the pot's going to be $150 million or something, right? And then that's their way to get to the chief. is to get Bond into this poker game. So like they need now. You would think MI6 would have some sort of a slush fund that they could pull from, like
They
look
might, but maybe not as large as that. So they have to get approval
they,
from the.
look
You know what? This could be because of the issue with Madagascar and the embassy too. This could be like they're under a microscope that they have to get approval from maybe the treasury.
okay, that's all very possible. I'm not saying it's not. We'll say is this. Look at like what the CIA's done as far as like the Iran Contra things. They were taking money, they were selling weapons to Iran and shuffling that money to the Contras in South America, right? These these agencies have their official budget where they get for stuff, and they have. You can't tell me they don't have a slush fund of like millions of dollars sitting somewhere that they can pull from that is completely off the books. Um, we go back to something this all started from Independence Day, right? Where Judd
Right,
Hirsch's
right.
character is like, you don't think they really pay like $20,000 for a toilet seat? You're like, yeah, there's money, like, which I get. They also have to find a way to introduce Eva Green's character into to introduce
Mm-hmm.
Vesper into this role. So like, not taking that away, like probably better. But I'm like, do they really need her? Like, you don't have like 15. Like, you've got $15 million laying around somewhere. Like, come on, the money's there. You just
Right. Well, we get them arriving at the hotel, and they get their background stories, and
they
Bond
have
like
to be America.
immediately just Bond immediately gives this up. He's pretty much like, "My name's James Bond" when he goes to check in. And she kind of is upset about this. And he's like, "Hey, look, this is a name he already knows. Like, I'm not giving him anything else. He's already looking for me. Like, whatever."
And
Right?
let's be realistic. He's already gonna know. Like, he
Yes.
can't be. He can't. James Bond is not that good of a super spy, and Lashif is not that good of an international terrorist to not know that. Like,
Right. This
there's
latest buy in that's being a replacement for somebody that just got caught doing some.
not only that, but like that at least MI6 or some other agency, which we later find out the CIA has a guy in there, is not going to try and infiltrate this poker game,
Yeah.
right?
Felix Leiter.
Like, come on, like you know who you're dealing with here, so like we can try and play these roles, or we can just like in poker, we can go heads up, face to face, and go from here.
Right. Yeah, I know. I like this approach from him. Bond's like pretty much why keep the charade,
He
right?
knows, I know that he knows that I know that he knows. Like, let's just quit going in circles. Let's just do this.
But he's also given a new car that has a cool like automatic glove box. That has like a defibrillator. It has guns. It's got all this cool stuff in it that we get
That,
foreshadowed here when he
that's the
goes out
first
to the
time we
car.
see him in the Aston Martin, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And they go to meet Vesper and Bond's contact named Renee Mathis. It's another person that's going to come up.
Did you catch the amount of product placement in this movie?
No, I didn't really. That kind of stuff actually never hits me because it's just real world brands that I never get.
Nah,
I
this
never
this
really
was a
get it
lot.
pointed
So
out.
obviously you have the Aston Martin, you have the watch he talked about on the train. There was the Sony Vio computers that were very blatantly placed,
Mm,
right? Usually most computers are just a blank gray back, right? Or like they'll put like a logo over the Apple thing, right?
right, right, right.
So you can't see Apple. But like, and then I saw the Sony Ericsson from the phones quite a bit. Um,
Hmm.
they made sure those were in the shots quite a bit. And I looked up, and I think for Spectra, for one of the last ones, it wasn't for No Time to Die. One of the last ones, there was like $45 million in product placement. There was a
Yeah,
ton.
that's how they make some of their budget back. Yeah, that's how some of these
They
movies.
they said
I
it
think
it
Man of
almost
Steel.
it almost
I think
fully
Man of Steel had 160.
it almost fully funded one of the movies, and
Yeah.
then it got like they did scale it back for one of the movies because it was like there was a lot of it was just blatant and it was really bad, and then they started getting I think it was for Die Another Day. The people were calling it Buy Another Day or something. So it was getting bad, and they were like, "All right, let's scale this back a bit." But like the, for me, it was whenever I saw the first Sony Vial computer because like the way the computer was set up and the angle it was, and you just saw the Vial
Hmm.
on the back, and I was like, "Really?" And then I had to look up like how much product placement was in this, and I was like, "Oh, it's a lot." And then I saw like the Sony Ericsson on the phone, and I was like, "All right, Sony, like I get it."
Yeah, I didn't even realize any of that stuff. But yeah, they have like I guess a Blu-ray player, a Vio laptop, a
Yeah,
camera,
and you know,
Walkman.
a lot of it was done by Sony, which I'm now
Yeah,
just
yeah,
thinking.
Sony.
Yeah. So that
Interesting. No, I didn't notice that.
that might have been part of it too, with as far as like when they did
You
the
just keep
trade
seeing
for
Sony.
Spider Man.
Oh, maybe.
Like, hey, look, we're gonna throw some products in this movie.
Right. Um, we get the games. Oh, so they meet with Mathis. He has helped take out um the guy that they're replacing the buy-in for, right? Like it's he like planted something, right, that gets him in trouble. And now Bond is going to buy in. Um, we have his first like real meeting with Lashif, who's like, "Oh, is it Mr. Beach or Mr. Bond?" Right? And um, they have a $10 million buy-in, and they go alphabetically. So Bond has to go up there and create a password first. What that password is will come back around, and then we get the game's beginning, and they'll take several breaks throughout this game. Right? Like at the first break, Bond is going to put something in an inhaler that I guess Lashif uses. Right, so it's supposed to,
It's a
um,
mic, it's a bug, so they can
yeah,
listen on.
so you can listen in. Um, Also, during one of these breaks, we have Obano, who's the character from, I guess, Uganda that Lashif lost the money for, is coming in to threaten Lashif and his girlfriend. And while this is going on, Bond and Vesper are walking in the hallway. They start acting like they're like what, kissing or whatever, and then the fight, like a fight starts happening where he has to take out Obano and the other guy here, and he does kill them. Vesper helps actually. Like there's a time where the guy was reaching for the gun, right,
Yeah,
and she's able to kick it away enough so Bond can continue the kill, and he hides the bodies and tells Vesper to go get Mathis and dispose of the bodies. But when they come back to the table and stuff, right? Bond's changed his shirt because it's all covered in blood, and Lashif notices that, and Bond also notices a tell that Lashif has when he is bluffing, um, which again comes back around to Lashif notices is able to change his tell, and it does make Bond lose um,
a
one of the
handsome sum of
rounds.
money. Yeah, he
Yeah,
goes.
he gets out.
Yeah. Um. So I don't know if you were going to mention it. The scene where Bond goes back into the hotel room and we see Vesper in the shower, right?
Yeah,
Because she's just gone through a traumatic. She's an accountant, right?
right,
She's
right.
there to handle the money, and her job is actually like an accountant. Um, she's probably never seen anybody get killed like that before. She's probably never seen a dead body or anybody get killed at all And then she has to see James Bond go through all this, protecting her. They got shot at and everything. So when I was on IMDb last night, I saw initially she was supposed to be like just in her underwear or like nude in the shower, sitting there like trying to process all this. But I guess it was Daniel Craig who brought up like that's not the kind of person she would be. Like she just saw something this traumatic. She's not going to take the time to probably take her clothes off. She's
Right, right.
probably just going to like hop in the shower there and like try to start decompressing and try and process this like as it is, not like, oh, let me get undressed and get in the shower for a sexy type scene. And Daniel Craig was the one who was like, no, that doesn't really fit. And then that's where we got the scene we saw, which I think works out a lot better.
Yeah, because he joins her in with his clothes getting all soaked as he sits with her.
And he's got, he's understands like this is normal for him. Like what he's seeing, what he's dealing with, he sees all the time. He deals with all the time. I'm sure he has to process it in his own separate ways, whether that's with his many different martinis or his affection for women or whatever, or whatever, however he deals with it, right? But he's gonna find a way to deal with that at some point too. It's a lot, but like I said, she's an accountant. She doesn't deal with it. She probably doesn't leave the office ever. Right? She probably has a regular 9 to 5,
Right.
drives to her office, deals with spreadsheets and paper, some phone calls and meetings, and then goes back home, right? And now she's here. She's just got shot at. She had to help you kill a guy. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
let's take a step back and let's try and help you process this and see what we can do to help you out. And I thought that was a very interesting and really well done scene.
Yeah. We also get when Bond does lose, right? He
She won't give him the
loses.
money to buy back in.
Yes. Yeah. We're at a point here where he's kind of running out of options. But we are introduced to CIA agent Felix Leiter, right? Who actually will give Bond the money. Now, he is a famous Bond character. He's been played through many different types. He's always like a CIA American operator that is a friend of James Bond in these movies.
Okay, I did not know that. I thought
Played by
is
Jeffrey
he
Wright. Played by
is
Jeffrey
he
Wright.
is he in other James? Is Jeffrey Wright? Does Jeffrey Wright play the same agent in other upcoming James Bond movies, or is
Yes, he
this like a one
does.
shot?
Yep.
Oh, so if I watch more, I'll see him again eventually in another movie or so.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
He's a frequent I don't remember how many. It looks like 3 movies Jeffrey Wright appears in as Felix Leiter.
okay. I wasn't sure if that was. I thought it was just a random dude they decided to add a CIA agent, so I didn't know there was like an actual backstory and an actual character that
Yeah.
he played.
Oh yeah. So for the hardcore Bond fans, when they introduced him as Felix Leiter, they probably were like screaming in the theater, like, "Whoa, my god, who is this?" Um, but he's going to stake Bond the money in exchange for letting the CIA take Lashif into custody. So Bond's going to make that deal, but Lashif's girlfriend Valenka is going to poison Bond, and Bond makes it back out to the car. He calls MI6 for help, right? And they tell him like, "What? Take an antidote, and then you're
Yeah,
going to have to put on
the
because you're
defibrillator.
going to go into cardiac arrest. You're going to have to put the defibrillator together." And when it's ready for him to push the button, he realizes that the red wire, I guess, came undone from it, and he passes out. And Vesper had followed him out there and does resuscitate James Bond, saving his life. And she's pretty much like, you have to go to a hospital, and he's like, I gotta go win this game. He's pulling up like Michael Jordan flu game here. He goes in and goes
Flu-like
back to the table.
symptoms. Yes, and it counts. Yeah, he's
Amazing.
he's definitely putting one for the record books here. This goes down in the lore of Bond. Well, no, this ain't even his best performance of coming back from this. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, the next thing. Yeah, he goes back. He's gonna win the next time. He gives a nice little tip to the dealer too.
Look,
as he leaves.
so this where he finally wins the whole thing. This was another one where I was like, I don't like this feeling. This is tension. This is anxiety I'm feeling, and I don't like this because I have been in that situation, right? Where so they would have had to make like little side pots for the other two who didn't have much. They were all in, but they were only all in for their small amounts. So they would have had to make like, okay, here's a side pot, you can win this amount. Here's a side pot, you can win this and this. And then, okay, there's the two big dogs over here. You guys can win everything, right? But if one of you two win, you guys can win this amount. But then, so there was actually three separate pots going on at that one point. That in theory, three separate people could have won. So you could have had the guy who had the lowest amount could have won overall. He could have taken money from him and the next guy, and then that guy could have, because he had, I think, more money than the first guy. He had a little bit more at stake, but then it could have been between him and the two big dogs, and then the two big dogs. So but overall, James Bond won. And I say all that to say, yeah, there was tension, full house, aces and eights,
yeah,
and if you don't know that's called the dead man's hand. There was a famous Full House. It might have been, was it Wild Bill Hickok? I'm not sure, but if you look it up, it's a famous hand that apparently a famous cowboy was killed when he had that in his hand. So it became known as the dead man's hand of aces and eights. And then I saw the table unfolding, and obviously we don't see James Bond's hand, and I'm like, this son of a bitch has a straight flush. Because I'm on the outside seeing this, right? I'm like, he's got a straight flush. Now, if I'm at the table, I'm looking at this and I'm like, it's possible there's a straight flush out there, but the chances aren't good, right? And I'm not one of those guys who plays poker who knows the math behind it. And they talked about it before in a couple of the other poker scenes where they go into percentages and math, and I'm not that advanced. I don't know all that. But I would have looked at that and like, okay, there's a possible straight flush on the board, but the chances of it are pretty slim. Like I like if I have a full house, if I'm the chief right there, I really like my odds. Because
right.
There's only one hand that available that could beat you, and like it's possible. It's not probable. And the probability came up on that one. So yeah, I felt the tension and the stress and the anxiety at that scene, and I was like, oh, this is great, but I don't like this feeling. So now I kind of understand how people say they get very stressed out or feel anxiety when they watch certain movie scenes. And I was like, I don't get it. Why? Like, it's a movie. Like, it's not real. And then that hit me, and I was like, oh.
So you just need poker movies to get it going.
Well, the thing is, I've never really watched one. I know like Rounders is out there. There's a couple. I never, because they never really appealed. Like the aspect of the movie otherwise never appealed to me. But seeing this and then knowing there's high stakes because you're international terrorist and James Bond and all this other stuff, and thinking like there's $100 and some odd million on the line in this pot.
Yeah.
Like, whew, that's a lot.
And Bond keeps his word. He tells Felix, "There's your guy. Go get him." Right. Thank you very much. And what happens next is that Vesper and Bond are going to end up getting kidnapped. Vesper gets kidnapped. Bond follows.
And well, they have dinner. They have dinner and they have a nice long talk.
Oh yeah, they have dinner first. Yeah.
So okay, so now here's the thing. I watched this because I own a James Bond set. Yes, this is the first James Bond movie I've ever watched. But I own this set with everything up until what was the last one? Die Another Day.
The last one is No Time to Die.
I own a box set, a Blu-ray box set with everything except No Time to Die. It was on sale on Amazon during a Prime Day in the last couple of years, and I think it was only like 30 or $35, and I'm like, I'm losing money
So
if
it
I
even
don't buy it.
has the non Daniel Craig ones too.
Has all of them from the very
Nice.
beginning. And like I said, it was like 35 or $40. It wasn't much, and I'm like, I'm losing money if I don't buy this. Like, I have to buy this.
It'll
Plus,
come
I'm
up
like,
sometime.
plus I'm like, it's James Bond. Like, I can imagine at some point I might just decide, you know what? Let me finally watch a James Bond movie. I didn't know it was
Mhm.
going to be you that was going to make me watch a James Bond movie, but I figured I would at some point. Like, it was the same thing I did with Lord of the Rings. Like, I hadn't
Right,
watched it
right.
before, but I was like, these are major movies. Like, let me check them out. So I have all these, right? And um, so I put this in my Xbox Series X. I watched the disc. I know it's streaming somewhere, but I didn't want to fiddle with it. I wanted to break the disc out. So cool. I'm watching it, and I couldn't. The remote I have, I couldn't tell how much time was left. So I'm like, at this point, when they have dinner, I'm like, okay, there can't be much more of this movie left. Like, the poker game's over. At some point, there's got to be like the standoff between the chief and Bond. And not saying the movie took too long. It didn't. The movie moved at a great pace. Like, I was engaged throughout the entire movie.
Right.
But I didn't realize how much of the movie was left after the poker game.
Hmm.
I want to say there was probably like 30, 40 minutes of the movie left after this.
I think it's 30 to 45 minutes. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that because I'm like, okay, well, he won at poker. Now it's the matter of like catching the chief and maybe interrogating him and somebody dies and then and that's the end of the movie. Was I wrong? And I was like, wait a minute, there's how much, as I'm watching this, I'm like, how much more of this movie's left? But I want to see more, but how much is left? And I just couldn't see how much was left without like rewinding it. So
Yeah, so we go to after the dinner they get well, Vesper gets kidnapped as Bond as sees her getting grabbed into a car. He follows, gets an accident. He's gonna get
dude, so the aspect of him driving down the road, trying to catch up with this car, and next thing you know is he sees Vesper tied up in the middle of the freaking road.
Yep.
Like I'll be honest, I was looking at something on my phone and I happened to look up at the last second and I saw like when he swerved and I saw like a quick glimpse of Vesper and I was like, hold on a second here, and I had to rewind it and watch carefully where he's like driving and he's just doing his thing and then all of a sudden he looks up and there's Vesper and I was like, oh, that's sadistic right there. Because if his reflexes aren't on point, she is. But a matter of fact, both of them are probably done for.
Yeah. Instead, he ends up getting he avoids crashes. Lashif's men pick him up and take him to this place where he's going to get tortured naked. By the way, and I think this is what you were referring to a little bit ago here when he's getting.
This is the flu game. This is the flu game.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So look, um, I'm a weird dude. I've read and watched documentaries or YouTube videos and listened to podcasts on like murder and true crime and all this stuff. And I've heard about like medieval torture devices and how they used to torture people, including one where they would put someone in like a metal thing and then heat the metal up, like basically a metal coffin or casket, and then put a big ass fire underneath it and basically cook the person on the inside from it and flaying and stuff that like I've seen stuff that like the cartels do. I'll just give you a name. I won't go into describe it. One of them is called the Colombian necktie. Google that if you choose. You'll. I don't want to spoil that for anybody, but yeah, it's wild. This might be one of the wildest I would have ever seen or heard of. And okay, they take like a wicker chair and they cut the bottom out, and old James Bond is naked. And he's sitting there with his bare butt and his balls hanging out under the chair. And I didn't get what was going on. And then Lashif comes up with a rope with a big ass knot on the end, and I'm just like, I don't get. You're gonna hit him with the knot? Like I don't get this. Like this doesn't make any sense. And then he hit him the first time, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, very tough, very tough scene to watch. There was a moment here too where I think it's like he says something like he like laughs and says like everybody's knows you're going to like die after scratching my balls or
Balls,
something.
yes, that might be the greatest line in James Bond movie history, and this is the only James Bond movie I've ever seen. You're gonna die after scratching my balls, and it's just look. I'm gonna be honest. He kind of took it like a man. Well, I can't even really say that, but like he took it and it was just like just kept going, like oh, a little more to the left or whatever. But
Yeah. He look, he's trained for this.
can you really train
Um
yourself for that, sir? Like,
I don't know, he handles it pretty well. But you know, and Lashif even says like my friend Mathis, your friend Mathis is my friend Mathis, right? And um Bond does get out of this, of course, and he's going to well one the guy that like Lashif owes the money to, right, comes in and pretty much is like, hey, you're done. And it's like the one time we really see Lashif, I feel like, be scared of something, right? Like he's kind of been the big bad this whole time. And you get this guy coming in and he's like, I don't know, I'll pay. Doesn't matter. He's dead.
which so okay, once again, going back to uh, what I was just saying earlier, thought we were kind of at the end. The Chief's dead, and then you get like James
Yep.
Bond recovering in the hospital, right? And one of his partners gets some comeuppance because he betrayed him, right? So I figured, like, okay, like we got a couple minutes, and then the credits gonna roll. That was incorrect.
Got like another 15, 20 minutes. um, he awakens in a hospital and is recovering with Vesper. He tells everybody Mathis was working with them, and you know, he gets arrested. And during this time, they come and transfer the money, and he puts in his password, right? Or he tells Vesper to put in the password, and the password is her name, Vesper, right? Um, we end up getting him falling. He pretty much falls in love with Vesper and is going to leave MI6 for her. And we get a cut to like Venice after they're done recovering in the hospital. Um, in Venice on like a boat, right? And he's sending his resignation letter, and they're having fun sleeping around Venice, I guess. And she has to go
It wouldn't be hard
run
to
an
fall.
errand with the
It wouldn't be hard to fall in love with Vespa. Like, not gonna. Can't act
bank.
like I wouldn't see myself doing that either.
And while she's gone, you know, M calls and is like, "Hey, I got your letter. We'll talk about that in a second. But are you ever wiring this money?" And that's when it really hits Bond that something is wrong here. He calls the banker guy that originally was supposed to transfer it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I sent it, and the funds are actually being withdrawn now at the Venice branch." And he realizes that Vesper has betrayed him here. He follows her. There's this whole shootout at this very old building that's going to collapse. Really cool kind of set piece here, but Vesper gets locked in a cage and is room starts filling up with water. You know, he's trying to save her, and he can't. And he tries to give her, mouth to mouth. Doesn't work. And we get some background filled in at the end here where M is pretty much saying that, like Bond is back to working with them, and says that she had a boyfriend who was kidnapped and would have been killed if she had not cooperated. That's why she did what she did. Um, you know, James is rightfully mad at Vesper, but M kind of points out like she's the one that like I guess saved you originally, but also that she had kind of traded the money for saving Bond's life after Lashif was killed, because both him and her got out of that. And she also mentions this clears Mathis, and Bond says, "No, it doesn't." And she says, "You don't trust anyone, do you, James?" And he says, "No." And she says, "Good." This is what she's kind of referring to at the beginning here. And she's like, "I need you to know who to trust." And it seems like she says, like, "You learned your lesson. You can't trust anyone. This is the life of a double O." And what we get here, though, is Bond takes the phone that Vesper had and is able to track down Mr. White, who is the bad guy here, takes him out, and we get the famous line of Bond, James Bond, after the guy had asked who he was on the phone. So I just a really great ending scene here. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I was wondering because it didn't hit me until he said it. Like, yeah, we didn't get the line throughout the movie. He didn't say the thing. He's got to say the thing. But then he said the thing, and I was like, okay, that's how you end the movie. And then we get the banging theme song.
Yeah, exactly. And that is that. So, what is your thoughts on Vesper and the double cross here? This happened in the book, apparently. I looked up, like, this is something they kept from the
original Casino Royale story. Because this is the second version of Casino Royale. Actually, it might be the third.
It says third. The first movie is actually a parody movie, Casino Royale, oddly enough. And then there was, like, I guess a TV show was adapted in as well. So it's the third adaptation of Casino Royale.
Betrayal's never cool. But I can understand, like, she's put in a very messed up situation, right? She did what she could to save, to spare James Bond's life. And she basically sacrificed herself in the end because she knew she was wrong. And it's a heartbreaking thing. And this is, I guess, if this is the James Bond origin story, this is maybe probably how we get the James Bond that we know later, who has no connection to women, kind of just sleeps with them and then just rolls on. But I guess he also, I don't know if it carries on in this series. In previous series, he always had issues where eventually they would end up dying. So, like, kind of hard to really have a relationship when everybody you sleep with is getting shot or thrown out of a helicopter or blown up or drowning or something, right? I don't know. Very unfortunate. But yeah, it gives us the Bond we know and love.
Yes, it does. And that is the end of the first Daniel Craig Bond movie. Like I said earlier, I forgot how much this movie rules when I was watching it again the second time. I was like, oh god, this is great. I think this is actually probably my favorite of the new Bond movies out of the ones I've seen. I think this one is my favorite. It's usually ranked pretty highly on people's lists when you look at rankings for Bond movies. So For me, a 5 out of 5, of course, for me. This is something that I wasn't sure if I was going to like when I first watched it. Really dug the movie. And what say you, Casey McGeorge?
So, as we said, it's my first Bond experience ever. I can kind of understand now why people weren't necessarily excited about Daniel Craig's Southern accent in Knives Out after seeing him in this. Because I don't know what Daniel Craig had done prior to James Bond. Once again, I might have seen him in something. I know he wasn't a huge
Not a
star,
lot.
so I
Yeah.
might not have seen him in anything at all. In all honesty, like I get that, I might not have seen him at all. Like I know this was like his breakout role. Um, I oh the hell with it. This is a goddamn 5. Out of 5. The cold open was great. The the intro credits really hooked me, and then the scene in Madagascar got me. And then from that point forward, I loved it. Now I will admit, had I seen James Bond as a kid, I might have liked it for different reasons because, like we said, all the fantastical stuff of like cars going underwater and like super secret agent stuff of like cufflinks that are darts and like pen with poison ink and all, like all this crazy wacky stuff that eventually they realized they had to
Right.
get away from. And we talked about it. They wanted to go in a more realistic direction with these James Bond movies. So had I seen one of those other movies as a kid or as a teenager, I might have liked those for a different reason. But I can see myself liking this particular James Bond movie for those reasons. Now, as I said, I do own all of them. I do want to go back and watch some other ones. I definitely want to continue with the Daniel Craig. One of the things I was doing, um, if you were watching this, and you, Jordan, as you've seen, I was looking down. I was on my phone once or twice
Mm-hmm.
because that's when I realized I didn't have what is the name of it? I didn't have No Time to Die, so I was actually going on Amazon and buying the disc for No Time to Die because that's when I was like, wait a minute, it has everything except for No Time to Die. Like I want to watch. I need more James Bond in my life at this point. Like I don't know if I'll enjoy the other ones as much, right? Um, I definitely at least want to see Goldfinger just because of the Fort Knox thing. I went to basic training and I was stationed at Fort Knox,
Mm.
right? So that I might
I
check
think that
out.
would be the next. I think the next ones I would go to is probably backwards. I'd probably go Pierce Brosnan next. I think that's what I would watch next if I was, and kind of make my way backwards to the 61s because I feel like that would probably hook me better, seeing more recent ones and then going back.
Yeah, like if anything, I definitely want to watch all the Daniel Craig ones first, and then from there it's going to be: do I want to start
Yeah.
the very beginning, or do I want to just like maybe pick and choose? I don't know, but I do want to watch more James Bond. I've already answered like, would I buy this? Yeah. Well, let's put it this
He
way:
already has it.
had I already not owned it, I could see myself buying it. I just bought another one literally within the last hour, and I already own it on Blu-ray. So it is definitely being added to the collection. I can actually, because I'm debating. Well, I haven't actually clicked purchase yet, so I'm debating. Do I just, because these are Blu-rays? So I'm thinking, do I want to get the No Time to Die Blu-ray? Do I want to get the No Time to Die 4K? Which then means at some point I'm gonna have to want to get all of these other ones in 4K just so the set can match up. And it's like, God damn it!
Get
Like
the 4K.
I'm debating. It's a thought that's in my head. I might look and see if there's like a 4K set right now and just buy the whole thing. I don't know. So yeah, it was definitely an enjoyable experience. The performances were great. Like I said, I can understand the deal with Eva Green now. Dame Judi Dench is phenomenal in her role as M. I cannot wait to see what else she does, and I want to see more in this James Bond universe in these latter ones. I've heard different things about which ones are the better ones of the more recent ones, but I don't think I've heard there was a bad one in the batch.
I think a lot of people don't like Spectre, and I think if we're going
Is Spectre the next
Quantum of
one?
Solace, which is no Quantum of Solace is the next one, which I think people are not big fans of. I mean, I enjoyed it. Again, I binged them all pretty quickly though, so
And I know those. I think those two are the next ones, and I think that's where they couldn't get both. They couldn't use the rights to Blofeld and or Quantum of Solace.
eventually
They tie everything
they
up.
get the rights to everything, pretty
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
but I'm on the yeah. So according to Sir Roger Moore's book Bond on Bond, um, Kevin McClory, who previously owned the movie rights to Spectre, the character of Blofeld, and the Thunderball remake, and outline scripts and treatments of stuff, had been a long time pain in the ass of the people who were doing James Bond. They couldn't use Blofeld, the organization of Spectre, for fear of litigation, which is how Quantum came out. They originally wanted to use Spectre as the villains in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, but that's why they came up with the other ones. And then after in 2013, after McClory's death, there was a settlement, and that's how they were able to bring everything together. So I'm definitely interested to see how that ties up. And I think some people were saying that's something they didn't like was like they made one organization a group, and then they had tried to tie it to something else, and then Blofeld comes in and all this other stuff.
Well, what I'll say is, to me, it all made itself make sense. I guess like I like the way that there's kind of like a consistent through line through these movies compared to what I would think some of the older movies have, because it is like very much of taking down like the next thing, but it's linked to another thing. Like it's very
Yeah,
much in that line, which I like. Um, okay, well, other people reviewed this 90% on the popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes, 94% for critic reviews. IMDb has this movie at, I believe, like a 7 point something here. 8.0. 8.0. And Metacritic, I don't have that in front of me right now, but I believe it was good.
I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty high on Metacritic.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I really liked about this, I'm not sure if I'm alone, but like the cinematography, whatever filter they have on this, to me at times it feels like an older movie. I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't know if it's the colors they're using or like there's like a green or yellow filter over some of this that makes it look like something like unlike any of the other ones feel to me. I don't know what it is, but it just looks really nice when I watch it. I'm like, oh, I think this movie looks very pretty at times. But yeah, so that's that. Let me get to the stats before we pick our next movie here. We are a +1 for franchises and a +1 for adaptations. This is an adaptation based off of a book, of course. And for franchises, this is our 16th franchise, the James Bond franchise. We're a +1 for Daniel Craig, +1 for Jeffrey Wright, Dame Judi Dench, Eva Green, Mads Mikkelsen. They all sit at one film, but some of those actors are in quite a few.
I was gonna
So,
say
like other movies.
Matt should be in at least two.
What else was he in?
Rogue One.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay, yeah. Sorry, that's my bad. Yeah, so Mads Mikkelsen up to number 2 because he was in Rogue One.
I was gonna say I don't know about the other ones because I'm not keeping stats, but I know he was in.
I
Rogue
looked
One.
at their filmography. We haven't. That
Haven't
was
touched
the.
anything.
I just kind of got copy paste happy on Mads Mikkelsen, I guess. But yeah, the other ones have all just been in this movie. And he adds our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's our 6th character, main character with a J, and Vesper is our 4th character with a V. Pretty good. Okay, so what are we watching next time, Casey?
Okay, so I had a plan. We were gonna go into the John Hughes universe. We were gonna watch Weird Science. It's not streaming anymore.
Is it gone?
It's gone.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
But that's okay. Because we're gonna add some stuff to some other people's here. We're gonna go on Hulu. We're gonna go to let me see. When did this come out? No. We're gonna add another Michael Bay movie, which I don't know if that's the first one or.
I think it's the first Michael Bay.
Okay, we're gonna add some Michael Bay. We're gonna go on Hulu. We're gonna add one to Nicolas Cage. So he should be moving up. This would be like 3 or 4 with him.
This should be Nick Cage's third film. Nick Cage currently sits, Face Off and Into the Spider-Verse.
We're gonna add number 3. We're gonna go to Alcatraz and we're gonna watch The Rock.
Okay.
This is part of the trilogy
I've never heard of this movie.
Nick Cage movies. So, when vengeful General Francis X. Hummel seizes control of Alcatraz Island and threatens to launch missiles loaded with deadly chemical weapons into San Francisco, only a young FBI chemical weapons expert and a notorious federal prisoner have the skills to penetrate the impregnable island fortress and take him down. Stars Nicolas Cage. Stars Ed Harris as Brigadier General Francis X. Hummel. John Spencer as FBI Director James Womack. William Forsythe as Special Agent Ernest Paxson. Vanessa Marcel. John C. McGinley as a Marine captain. We'll get a good chance to say goodbye to Tony Todd, who plays a Marine captain.
Michael Biehn, too, right? Biehn, however you pronounce that. He's in Terminator.
And we will add a rumored connection to the James Bond universe, because the co-star is Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
So basically, Sean Connery plays a prisoner that the FBI, the CIA put away in prison for like the last 40 years, right? He's the only one they managed to catch him after he escaped off Alcatraz Island. And he's been just like thrown in various prisons. But Francis Hummel takes some people prisoner on Alcatraz Island. He's got chemical weapons. He's threatening to shoot at San Francisco. So the only way to get back into Alcatraz Island to take care of these bombs is to get the guy who escaped from Alcatraz Island, right? Now, this goes into something you don't like, which is the fan theories. Because Sean Connery plays a guy by the name of John Patrick Mason, a British agent, right? Who, like I said, the FBI captured. The fan theory is that, and this goes along with the fan theory from the James Bond universe of how James Bond is just the 007 is the role, and people just eventually come and fulfill that role. That eventually we as the Americans caught James Bond, 007. And because of who he is, just like in Mission Impossible, one of the things they say, if you're caught or captured, we will disavow all knowledge of it, right? So someone that high ranking, someone that big of a spy, like either you have to do some major work to get him out, or depending what he was doing or what he was looking at, various other things, what he was caught doing, some governments are just going to be like, hey, you knew the risk going in, you're on your own. Sorry, man. Like, you knew this was part of it when you signed up for it. So there's the wild fan theory that John Mason is 007 that the Americans have captured. And we've been holding him for years, and the British government won't take him back or can't take him back. because then that would acknowledge they
That's
were
funny.
spying on us in our country and everything else, right? Which I'm sure
Right,
they're
right.
doing, but they can't acknowledge that, especially as we're allies. So they just kind of like had to let him rot, and now we need him. So it's a weird connection to the James Bond universe into this, especially considering everything that's happened. I really want to watch Weird Science, but I don't want you to have to pay for it. So we will watch
Yeah. Well, we'll get around to it
Sean
someday, I
Connery.
guess.
I might just buy you Weird Science and mail it to you. That's how much I want to watch the movie. But instead, we will. It's on Hulu as of this recording, Sunday, December 15th. It is on Hulu, which it wasn't on Hulu up until this because I looked for it quite a few times to add.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't. It
Yeah, so we'll have
wasn't.
to make sure we watch it this week.
Maybe it's a monthly thing, so maybe if we watch it before the end of the month, we're good. But, and and
All
and
right,
you
interesting.
get
Another Nick
you
Cage
get
movie.
Sean Connery in his Sean Connery accent. Welcome to the Rock. That's a horrible Sean Connery accent, but it's the best I can do.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's what we'll talk about next time. Thank you all for watching and listening along as we talked Casino Royale. All of our social media links are in the description below or in your podcatcher description. Have a great rest of your next 2 weeks, and we'll catch you next time when we talk The Rock, not Dwayne Johnson.